So this is going to be the start of me taking YouTube more seriously. Okay, so this video is going to be about duality. So this is something that I have been thinking about a lot. Duality means it is essentially the interconnectedness that everything has two sides. It's your sun and moon, it's your yin and yang, it's your dark and light. To have the feminine and masculine together, there is a partnership of something that complements each other. Nothing is whole without the existence of both forces. So obviously, this is not a new concept. A lot of the spiritual gurus, people who are into mental wellness, it's something that we talk a lot about. I think one of the most commercial terms that we use is finding balance. So why I think that duality is the key to achieving peace and not us trying to always pursue happiness, because happiness is fleeting. Duality, or that sense of balance, is having peace doesn't mean that you are happy. It is just you coming to a point where you accept and embrace that it takes two in order for it to be whole. You cannot just focus on one and neglect the other. This is where we have the conscious and the unconscious, your light side and your shadow. In order for you to exist, you need both. And so I think what I've reflected in my journal was that, as much as today I feel a lot of, gratitude, gratefulness that I wasn't someone that was focused on that. I was more of the person that focuses on my fears, on what I lack. I'm not saying that it's entirely a bad thing. My negative moments, all those negative emotions that I felt before, or even today, it's a very different perspective, because before I knew all about this, before I went through this journey of trying to recenter myself, during those dark moments is when I was more of like a victim mentality. It was more of like, oh, why me? Why is it like that? It's always the why, and like, but always trying to get away or trying to blame it on everything else except yourself, or try to resist the fact that this thing is there in my life. I know that it sounds a little bit crazy for me to suggest to those of you who are into trying to achieve mental wellness, trying to achieve balance and peace. The faster you learn to accept and embrace that negative experiences are there in order for you to have positive experience. So peace comes from us embracing all kinds of experiences, and this includes negative experiences. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go out and look for negative experiences, or whenever there's a negative moment in your life that you really suck yourself into it. It's more of a healthy, optimistic kind of mindset where you're like, okay, this thing happened. I don't like it. I don't like how I feel about it. But there might be something good to it. There might be a purpose to it. It didn't happen to you, it happened for you. So really, in order for us to maintain equilibrium in life, this balance, when I say balance, you already know that it consists of two forces. There are two entities. If you just really focus on one, it will come a point in time where it's going to collapse. It's going to come a point in time where, because the world is so volatile, it is not stable, we are always trying to adapt, things are always changing. And when you know that things are always changing, the faster it is that you learn to embrace things that are not so pleasurable in life, or at least try to find pleasure in negative experiences or benefits in negative experiences, the faster it is for you to push your mental state to, become more resilient. So there are many philosophies that actually pushes this concept, not particularly using the word duality, but Buddhism talks a lot about this, which is why, there's this yin and yang. And of course, not forgetting Carl Jung's concept of the shadow. This is where you have your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. What we can learn from Carl Jung is the fact that the more you try to suppress or the more you try to ignore the existence of your shadow and you really just purely focus on the light. I think this is when people talk about like toxic positivity, like it's so different from optimism. It's almost unrealistic, like people ignoring that there are conflict or people trying to maintain harmony but in a very toxic way, that they know that there are certain things that they need to overcome, they need to go through that obstacle, or maybe they do need to confront the person that they actually love in order for things to go back into equilibrium or in order to achieve peace again. So I think the art of achieving this is really being aware of moments where you are just focusing and using your conscious state and you are actually neglecting your unconscious actions. How do you actually know these are unconscious actions? If you are somebody that is always living in the past, always focused on the future, you don't really take time to reflect on even the simplest, smallest thing, examination of yourself, of all the things that you've done, that you've said at the end of the day, which is why I highly suggest journaling, whether it's in the morning time or the night time. It's good to take just 5 to 10 minutes and ask yourself, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Did it work in my favor? Does it align with my values? So things like that kind of keeps you in check. And honestly, after working with people that I've coached, even including myself, I know that it's easier said than done because many times you can preach about it, you can talk about it. These are all theory, these are all suggestions. But at the end of the day, when you are behaving, in a certain way, when you're taking action, and do you truly know why that is happening and are you in control of it? I think that is the golden key to having awareness. Sometimes this awareness thing can become a thing that people talk too much about, but there's no action. It's like, oh yeah, I'm aware, I'm quite a self-aware person. But then your awareness is not intentional, it's not targeted, there's no action plan, there's no execution. It's just awareness. So you sound like this person that is actually very conscious of your surrounding, but then your actions don't show it. So earlier this week, I wrote in my journal about how I'm dealing with duality and how there are pros and cons to it, to be honest. It's just knowing what you want and willing to be accountable for it is going to make life so much easier, right? So let me just read this off my phone. So I wrote that I do feel more heightened pleasure now from feeling grateful and recognizing bliss and blessings in my life. I also wrote that with this, I also feel deep pain from knowing when I don't recognize it and being more conscious about what I think, feel, and perceive. So what I mean by that is when you start to recognize duality in life, you kind of need to immerse yourself in both areas. So if you are someone that used to not be very thankful with your things, you don't really appreciate the little things in life, and then you start to realize that this is quite bad, and you start practicing gratitude, you become more and more thankful. You recognize there are little things in life that makes you happy, just like somebody making you a cup of coffee or waking up and you're able to breathe properly. Those kind of small things, it gives you a lot of euphoria. It's a sense of happiness, right? But because you have exercised this muscle of recognizing what gratefulness feel, of what happiness feel, of what contentment is, you have to recognize that you kind of need to have the lifestyle to support it. As much as I can talk about all these theories, and some people will think that this is woo-woo because it's not like scientific, right? Is that I'm also a believer of science, of evidence, and what I'm trying to say is you can have this awareness of like, okay, I need to be a grateful person. I need to be thankful. This is how I'm going to have more sense of happiness. But if your lifestyle doesn't support you having all these happy hormones, so example, right? You are somebody that likes to sleep late at night and then you go to parties, you get drunk, happy, right? Having fun. that kind of lifestyle where it's kind of going against this sense of peacefulness. So that kind of lifestyle doesn't support scientifically your body to be in a state where you can produce a lot of happy hormones. This is where I get some questions from people saying, how do you do this like gratefulness, gratitude thing? I don't get it. When I try it, it just doesn't work. Like, yeah, but because you don't biohack yourself, maybe you are eating a lot of toxic food that is messing up with your hormones, with your sleep, with your energy level. So even though you are supposed to be feeling happy about something, you ingest something that disrupt you internally to achieve that. Let's say that your lifestyle is in check, okay? You are doing a lot of this gratefulness, reminding yourself what you should appreciate, and then you feel this sense of contentment, this sense of bliss. So this is what I meant when I wrote in my journal that as much as I have placed myself in this optimistic state, I also feel deep pain when there are moments in my life where we are not perfect. We cannot just auto-tune ourselves to function in a certain way. There's certain things in life that you have to feel, that you have to experience in order for you to appreciate the other side again. So I've been practicing gratitude for a while and I can feel that blissfulness. And you realize it comes to a point where you're like, I'm always so happy, so chill, and so grateful. And then sometimes things don't go your way. Sometimes things happen. If you are the kind of person that doesn't have any reaction to it, I mean, you are really lucky. It means that you really function in a way where you can switch off those negative experiences. Now, what do I mean by heightened pain? A deeper sense of pain is that it's fine. It's in order for me to feel that happiness, that contentment, that appreciation, I must know the depth of the kind of pain, the kind of sorrow, the kind of emptiness on the other side in order to feel the opposite. So essentially, what I'm recommending is that we all embrace our duality, both sides, the ups and downs, the positive and the negative. Negative experiences shape me. The negative experiences is what gives me fire to succeed, like very dark focus. It's very rigid when you stick to only one part. And this goes the same for those people who are like, they are just so sensitive and so like allergic to negative experiences. The moment somebody criticizes, somebody says something that is not very nice, or like it's just some things that don't go your way, and then they have this energy around them. Like they almost look delusional. Reality expects them to learn to embrace the negative experiences. So let's talk about what are the practical steps for you to use the concept of duality to achieve peace and stillness. My first recommendation is always self-reflection. You don't really have to be that person that is very traditional. You have a notebook and you write. Maybe you really don't like writing. But you see, you not liking something is really a problem, because if you know that you have to work on something, but then the idea or a tip that is given to you that may help you, you immediately have this sense of like, oh, that's not me, I'm not going to try it. Ideally, writing down your thoughts is going to clear out a lot of the entanglement, a lot of the mess that is in your head. Honestly, writing can be very tiring, especially when today people are just so used to typing. Self-reflection, journaling, highly suggest. Don't make it fancy. Just literally write down basic things like, why did I say this earlier today? Why did I feel this way? Or even as simple as what you're feeling, and then trying to put meaning to your feeling. One good format that I've recommended to the people that I've coached is very easy. You just write down the things that went well at the end of the day, and then the things that can be done differently. So this is something that even in a workplace is often practice. Whenever you experience something, you learn something new, it's good that you consolidate everything that has happened or that you've learned into key points. So what are 2 to 3 things that went well for you today? Why did it go well? Some people need this extra rationalization in order for them to really get it in their head that this is actually a good thing. Just frame it in a positive way that helps you to take actions in future. What can you do differently next? So this kind of tells you subconsciously that, okay, if this happens again, this is what I'm going to do next. And then there is compassion and forgiveness. I think compassion, it depends on how it's applied. And honestly speaking, compassion can be something that is overused, and then you become this person that, is always so compassionate, but then you're not compassionate to yourself. I think this is where, when you accept that duality is part of nature's work, it is how everything else in our life functions. But I think what I mean by this in terms of duality and helping you to achieve inner peace is that it's also the compassion towards yourself. Whether it's a positive or negative experience, it's always there. The only reason why we experience life because of 2 forces. And if we are always resisting and not feeling good about it, maybe the natural way is to not resist and feel good about it. We all have our way of dealing with things. We all have our own set of beliefs. We have certain kind of personality type, and we choose to do certain things. But then if you're always very stuck to that method and not try to see like, what's the opposite of that? Like trying to learn from nature itself, yin and yang, masculine, feminine, sometimes things don't really go our way, or sometimes we keep repeating the things that we need to learn is because we fail to realize that we have been stuck in a particular state for a very long time. So there is a price to pay. One good example that I can give you that is something that I've experienced. I've always been the person that is quite masculine. Okay, what I mean by that is, in terms of my personality type, when I say masculine, it doesn't mean like, I talk like a guy, or, I do things that are very manly, but it's more of masculinity in the sense where I'm more goal-oriented, I'm very result-oriented, I'm always trying to prove something, behaving like an alpha, like whenever I'm in a group, whether it's at work or with friends, I always have this like instinct of wanting to lead. I didn't notice this about myself until people talk about it. And sometimes when you refuse to hear all these things that you don't like to hear, you also shut yourself out from recognizing what is duality. And so when I was feeling a lot of this dissatisfaction, that's when I started looking inwards, because looking outwards was already very painful and I couldn't control so many things outwards. I had to look inwards. And then I realized that is this masculinity that I'm projecting, that maybe I'm trying to compensate for something. Maybe I'm trying to rectify my childhood, that, maybe I felt like I wasn't masculine enough. I wasn't getting what I want when I was younger. That's why I'm like overcompensating. It could be that, right? And so when I started recognizing that, oh, you know what? It's really literally that moment that I'm like you become an observer rather than that in that playing the main character. You become the passerby of like, oh, okay, so this is me acting very masculine and this is how it's affecting people. Then I will start to ask myself, okay, is this the right moment that I continue doing that? Or maybe it's time to take a pause, maybe don't take any action, and ask myself, do I still want to proceed with this masculine oriented life? Or I think it's time to balance back, to bring back my feminine side. So this is where you really try to use duality as a measure for you to see where you're at. Okay, guys, I hope you found this sharing interesting, useful. Let me know what you think. I will be doing more of this kind of videos where I take you through some of the inspirational things that I've thought about, whether it's through my journal or it's through my YouTube findings, because I'm always trying to see what's out there. I am always trying to learn from this kind of intimate conversations that I have with interesting people. And because I'm always trying to learn, unlearn, relearn, it's going to be quite fun to talk about it in a video because I know that it will help some people out there. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.